Hi everyone, it's Zeralt here with the Midweek Zap, and today's guest is Alexandra Riecke-Gonzales, and we're going to be talking about communicating. So Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself and why people should be paying attention to you.
Oh wow! Why you should?
Yeah, go for it.
Wow, that's pressure. Well, a little bit about myself. This is always so hard for me because I'm such a mad case of everything. It's ridiculous. Some people know me as the voice of SEO Wise. Other people know me as the person that does glass in the class, which I do with my undergraduate classes that I teach at Kent State. Alongside of that, I am a graduate student in the School of Communication, which is why I teach communication. So that's mainly what I'm known for, I think, lately in Google+.
Okay, that's great. And we were chatting the other day about how we were going to get started, and I think we wanted to start with framing. And for those who don't know, tell us what framing means and why it's important to your online communication.
Absolutely. So framing has actually, it's really interesting. I started talking about it a couple months ago, and just recently, in the last few weeks, I've noticed that it's almost starting to become a buzzword, and I'm super happy about it. But framing in the most basic sense is how you construct your message, the different components that you add to a message as either a person or a business is going to change the way that you frame that message, and the way that you frame that message is going to change how the receiver receives that message. So based on what you want the person to receive from your message, you're going to frame it in a certain way. You're going to highlight certain words, you're going to say certain things, maybe leave some things out. And sometimes we do this almost, especially in our personal lives, we frame things, we don't mean to frame it a certain way. We just do. It's based on our past experiences. A lot of it comes from our personal frame of reference. So we see things differently than other people based on past experiences. And that frames our message, but it also frames the way that we receive the message. So that's something else we have to consider. First, we're considering how am I framing my own message? And then we're considering how is my audience going to react to that frame based on their own personal frame of reference. So it can get really confusing if you dive too deep too fast. But it's really important, especially if you're a business in social media today, because obviously you have so many platforms, so many places that you need to frame your message, and a lot of times you're not just thinking about how you want to send your message, but you're thinking about how you want your audience to receive your message. So that's how we got into this whole different platforms with different norms idea. I think that's how we went from A to B, I think.
We did, and framing is the way that you present your message. I'm just going to put it in simple language for some people who are new to Google Plus. Because it changes with who your perceived audience is. We're going to pretty much stay with the business consciousness of communication today. So that what you might say to a friend in a quick message or something might be very different from the way that you phrase, even your sentence structure or the words that you use may be different as a business. But one of the things that's really important about framing is how your tone, the overall tone of your message, is sent out, and definitely how it is perceived by your reader, your audience, your visitors to your website, however you are communicating. So we also wanted to talk about framing as a buzzword. Oh, let me bring this up for a second. This is from Kevin Burns. Thanks, Kevin. Framing is a buzzword. I liken to setting the stage scenario, delivery. And that's a really great way of putting it. Thanks, Kevin. And whoops, this is not going away. There we go. Um, so you want to talk a little bit about what that means when you're out on different platforms, so social media and different types of social media, and also your website, which is the primary core presence of your business online.
Absolutely. I mean, they're all very different entities, and the easiest way, at least for me to think about them, is in norms, because we have actually in the communication department, we have studied different norms on different platforms. Google Plus is still so new that we haven't studied it at all, so I can't tell you conclusively what has been found as a Google Plus norm. I can only tell you as someone that hangs out on Google Plus. But take Facebook versus LinkedIn, because those are two very different social platforms. It's really interesting when I see people try to compare platforms, you know, to say Facebook is better than Google Plus, or Facebook is better than LinkedIn. It really all depends, as David Amerland would say, it all depends on context. If if your context is better for you to be on LinkedIn, then you should be on LinkedIn. If it's better for you to be on Facebook, then you should be on Facebook. Generally, it has been found that Facebook tends to be a very personal platform. It's a place where we like to share things with our friends and family. I think that's why so many people have been saying Google Plus is better than Facebook, just because they're viewing it from a business point of view. From a business point of view, Facebook may not be the best platform. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying that evidence shows that on Facebook, people like to communicate with their friends and family. And there's certain norms there's some really weird norms that have been found with Facebook, like if someone posting something just to get attention is very popular on Facebook, but people don't think that you should be allowed to do it. So someone posting like, I feel so bad today, people see it as a norm that they're posting that for people to be like, feel better, we feel so bad for you. People don't appreciate that from their Facebook friends. There are some really weird things with Facebook, but most of it is very personal. It's personalized. People want to interact with their friends and family. For example, I don't use my own name on Facebook. My Facebook is actually under my dog, because I don't want my students finding me on Facebook. I am very personalized on Facebook. I share a lot more personal information, things that when I think about Google Plus, I'm like, people don't really care about this in my life. That's why I don't share it on Google Plus. I'm like, who cares? Who cares that my dog was adorable today? On Facebook, they care because it's my friends and family, and they're like, oh, what's she doing? But on Google Plus, I'm like, people don't really care unless I have an adorable picture, right? But if you look at Facebook versus LinkedIn, LinkedIn is very business focused, right? That is where it's basically, people have equated LinkedIn to the online resume. So obviously I'm not going to like say my boyfriend broke up with me on LinkedIn, because that does nothing for my resume. Honestly, it might hurt my resume if we really look at it. So it's just, I don't think comparing platforms is the best way to really look at it, unless you're looking at it as a business and you're saying, where am I going to find the audience that I need? Where am I going to get the most, I hate it, but return on investment in a platform? Then, okay, compare LinkedIn and Facebook, but understand that it all goes back to norms. It all goes back to what your audience expects on that platform. And of course, that all goes back to framing.
Right, and I think part of it is, because you said what your audience expects.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the message that you send out as a business is being consistent. Being consistent in your message, being consistent in the type of information that you share, and being consistent with with your tone of voice. If if you are a smart aleck, you know, then it's okay to show that personality. But if you're not a smart aleck and you try to put yourself out as a smart aleck, it's going to ring false. It's just going to ring. It's going to ring false. And for instance, Craig Fifield, who's going to be our guest next week, as a matter of fact, on his profile, he says right up front, he's a smart aleck, and so he has this tone throughout his whole personal profile that is charming and fun and witty. And if I tried to do something like that, it just wouldn't work. It isn't me. I'm not that kind of. I'm smart aleck. I'm a smart aleck, but not that type, not the witty kind, And so we're all different, and I want to tie it together, all being different and all being distinct. And tell us a little bit about your tattoo.
So it does tie in perfectly. I don't know how you did that. That was fantastic. So it is a zebra tattoo. A lot of people think that it's a tiger. No, it's a zebra because its head gets cut off. Fair enough. Someone once was like, "Is that a striped dog?" I was like, "Should I hit you right now? No. Why would I get a striped dog?" But I got it because it represents individuality. Because zebras all look alike, but they are actually very different. And it's one of many tattoos, which many people are generally surprised, like, what? You don't look like someone that would have tattoos. Yes, I have them. I love them. I try to cover them in certain situations to better frame my message or to not distract. The first few weeks that I have a new class, I try not to show my tattoos because they just, oh God, they take it all over the place. Like, they want to know all about my tattoos, and then they want to tell me about their tattoos, and I'm like, this is not on topic. Yeah, it's one piece of me that I guess is a little bit different.
Well, I think even more than that, when we were talking before the show about, how you look at zebras and you first think that they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that, we in our Google Plus community here, we're all people, we're all human beings, and that sort of makes us the same. But when you stand and look at zebras, you notice that every single one of them has a different stripe configuration. And the importance of delivering your message and communicating in all your various places is to be yourself, to show your individual striping. That's why I just thought your zebra tattoo was so spot on with what we're talking about today, because the bottom line is you want to differentiate yourself, and you want to differentiate your business, and you need to be rich with your content, because that is what, when we're online, we're looking for search return. And the more your content is original, and the more it educates people in whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's puppy training or fishing rods or archery or SEO. The more you differentiate yourself, the more the search recognizes you. Am I on the right path with that?
Yeah. I mean, you said, oh gosh, you said so many good things in there. Obviously, differentiate as much as possible. A lot of these big, authority guys have been talking a lot about finding your niche market. That's becoming the new, That's what you want to do. It's not about appealing to everybody. It's about finding that niche market that really fits you. And how are you going to do that? By differentiating, by really figuring out what it is your business does and what it is your business stands for. But at the same time, as you mentioned, you want it to still be true to you. Differentiate, but don't try so hard. It makes me think of this was really popular when I was in high school. I don't know if it still is, but this is gonna make me feel old. We had all of, like, when original was cool. So all of these people would try to be really original, but you knew they were doing it just to be original. They weren't actually doing it because they were different, because they were unique. They were trying so hard to be different because different was cool that you were like, no, you're not actually different. You're like the rest of us. You're confused. It's okay. You're in high school. That's what it makes me think of. Don't be those kids. But you also brought up something that's so important, and that's value. Whatever you're creating, differentiate, but make sure it has value to your audience, because value is what's going to keep them there.
And then I have a comment from Kevin Burns. Kevin, thanks for your comments. Be true to your core value alignment. You will get the best you from this fundamental dynamic. Oh, tattoo! Did you like that, Kevin? So it's value, and when you are original and you have your unique zebra stripe pattern, you know, Jimi Hendrix said it best, let your freak flag fly, you know, I mean, be you, because whatever your business represents, especially online, say it's SEO, there are a lot of people talking about SEO. The best way to be recognized both with your audience and with the search engines is to have original content. It's your take on it. It's your view of what's going on now. That is what gets you recognized, acknowledged, and perceived as an authority. I hate buzzwords, but you know, you know, in the great scheme of things, you want to be perceived as a person with experience and a person who has some authority. So I don't know. I just did a blog post today about this, and experience, authority, in your communications, because it's so important. And for a lot of people who are new, they're like wondering, oh, you know, I don't have that much experience, and you know, how are people going to perceive me as an authority? Well, one way that you can do that is to put links to known authorities. And I think it's been said many times, many places here on Google Plus, that sharing posts from perceived authorities in your business arena helps you gain your personal business authority. And as you continue to be consistent in putting out your own content and also referencing other authorities in your niche, you build that experience that is also important, and you gain trust. And I think trust is just so important, and it's so important in social media. And the best way to do it is to be consistent. You want to talk a little more about building trust and how people go about doing that through their communication?
Sure. Trust, obviously, another big buzzword. Mostly because it's the slippery fish that we all want, but it's so hard to have, especially as, you know, I run a couple of brand pages right now, and it's so much easier to get people to trust me as an individual than to get people to trust the brands that I represent. As a brand, it is really pe- people still do not really want to talk or associate with brands. It's really interesting. They still feel this serious distance between themselves and brands. So one of the best ways that I have found to build trust is through my personal page. I have made a real effort to connect myself with SEO wise, so that when people eventually, and I don't push SEO wise, I'd much rather people connect with me first than SEO wise. So I don't push SEO wise on them, but then when they actually come across SEO wise, they're like, Alex. That's what they associate the one-to-one. And that has been so much better for building trust for me. But in terms of communication, the way that we build trust is through disclosure. That is, the more that we disclose to another person, the more that they trust us, because we kind of, every disclosure that we make is a little bit of vulnerability for us, right? And I'm not talking huge disclosures. Like, I'm not saying like talk about the worst time of your life with every single person you meet. That's not what I'm saying. Everything is a disclosure. Your name is a disclosure. Saying the city that you live in is a disclosure. Saying that you own dogs is a disclosure. All of these little things about ourselves and about our lives are disclosures. Obviously, there are more intimate disclosures, and then there are more vague disclosures. And we always start with the vague ones that are like, hi, my name is, and this is what I do for a living, and that's how we start. And then we move into the more intimate ones where we talk about maybe our family, or we talk about our values, or we talk about how we stand religiously or politically. Those would be a little bit more intimate disclosures. And we build trust in that one person has to be the one to put themselves on the line and say a disclosure, and then it's expected that the other person responds with a similar disclosure of equal value. And in doing that, we go back and forth and we build this relationship around these disclosures. That's how you do it technically in communication terms. So obviously you can do it as a business too.
Right, and I liked your differentiation about leading people to you, and then when they get to your business, um, saying, "Oh, Alex." That's just a
Mm-hmm.
great way. That was a great way of describing how they interconnect. But I have something from Justin Case. He's been commenting along here. Hi, Justin. Thanks for joining us today. Something else very important to differentiate yourself is to use unique keywords that resonate with you and your brand. Make up something that is not in the dictionary. This gives you top ranking in search engines. And yes, differentiating yourself and building a language about yourself and your business, developing, keywords that soon start to be associated with your business is a very, very good way to build up that authority, actually, so that when you do a post on Google Plus, for example, and maybe you're doing a post where you're sharing information from some trusted authority, but you have your little take on it. You can also add to the value of the post, especially as far as search is concerned, by not only adding hashtags that have to do with the content of the post and the article that you're sharing, but start coming up with some hashtags that are built around your business and the content that you share in your business, so that those hashtags start getting associated with the content you're sharing, whether it's from another authority figure or it's from something that you have posted yourself. So language is very important. And Justin, thank you so much for that comment, because it is an important part of communicating and being perceived by the search engines. And when we're in business, we want our communication to be perceived. We want it to be perceived by our audience, by our visitors to our website, by other people on the social media where we have a presence, and especially by the search engines.
Absolutely. And I mean, I just like, I feel like keywords has become a kind of like, I don't want to say a dirty word, but people are like, oh, keywords, that's not semantic. You still have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think mentioning keywords is still important. I mean, as SEO wise, in our values, though, that's where we develop our keywords. That's where I know the keyword space that I'm working in. And I mean, with SEO wise, I like to have fun. I like the challenge of connecting anything to what we're talking about. Luckily, one of the big things I talk about is communication, so you can connect pretty much anything to communication. But I mean, if you really want to challenge yourself, you can make pretty much anything about anything. It's great. It's fantastic. And if it adds value to the post, then I mean, just think about how much you enhance your business presence and how much you enhance your authority, even though it's in a kind of, in a kind of different way. Someone that does it fantastically is Mark Traphagen. He can take anything and make it about what he talks about. It's fantastic. It's so cool to see, and I'm just like, man, that guy's smart. Man, he's smart. But I do think keywords, it's become kind of a dirty word, but I think we should give it a break, because I think you do still need to understand what your keyword space is. That doesn't mean you have to put a keyword in every 5 words, but you should still understand what your keyword space is and still try to work around it in whatever sort of posts you're doing, whether it's on your website or in social media.
I kind of think of using keywords, especially say in blog posts or on your website, etc., is the reverse. I wrote I wrote a post a few days ago, why I'm an SEO lowrider, and it's about, you know, finding the keywords after the fact. In other words, the most important thing in your content is communicating. I mean, you're talking to your audience and you're telling them, this, that, and the other, and the focus is on the communication. The focus is talking to the person who's reading your article or watching your video, and then afterwards you can go and look at the words that repeat and the key points of your article or your video, and use those words as your keywords. So it's a reverse thinking about, what's been going on for years about how, keywords, you find the keywords and then you construct the whole article or video around those keywords. But in this day and age and the way that search is built now, it's just the opposite. It's like being you and saying what you have to say is really the most important part of that communication.
Absolutely, and I love it.
I, I guess I feel kind of strongly about that. But it is really important. You know what? I cannot believe this. We have Zoomed.
Oh my gosh, it's 3:30.
Oh, we have Zoomed through this half hour. I just don't even believe it. I want to thank everybody in the audience for being here today. This has been a really fast half hour. I especially want to thank Alex for coming here and giving us her zebra points. It's the Alex who is Alex, and I really appreciate that, because there is a lot of theory out there about things, and I think you help everyone kind of hone it down and understand framing better, which is, it's one of those buzzwords that's going around, and what does that really mean? You really helped us with that, Alex. That was just terrific. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with everyone before we go?
I just want to thank you for letting me come on your show and talk about communication. I do want to let them know that, when I first started in Google Plus, I didn't know how I was going to make my mark. I didn't know what I was going to be an authority on. I mean, I'm young. I'm not, I'm obviously not, I've never considered myself an authority in any way, shape, or fashion. So I really listened to the conversations that were going on around me. And I noticed that a lot of them were talking around communication, but they weren't talking about communication. So that's how I really found my niche. So if you don't know what it is yet, if you don't know how to make your mark as an authority, it's okay. Just notice the discourse that's going on around you, and you'll figure out where you fit in, and it all works out. So I just want to leave you guys with that. Obviously, I'm always here to chat, so keep up the conversation in the event. I'll be in there later today, or obviously you're always welcome to message me at any point. I never leave Google+. It's almost sad.
Definitely circle Alex, because she just has so much to share. And Peter is here. Peter, hi. Thank you so much for joining us in strange hours on your time. And Peter is definitely the word person. Keywords got a bad name because of keyword stuffing, but they still have a significant influence. I call them semantic keywords these days. It just broadens the spec. Thanks so much, Peter. It's we have to deal with labels, and so semantic keywords, I think, is a good way of thinking about it, because they come out of what we're talking about. And I thank you so much for being here in your early, late hours. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody being here today, Super Zapster audience. And as I mentioned before, next week we have Craig Byfield of Circloscope. So we're going to be talking about not just Circloscope, but your presence online. It should be a lot of fun. Craig is just a lot of fun. Alex, thanks again for being here, and thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.